it's family because
It's family
church
all
too.
over. It's family not only church, but it's family through, real people.
We were finishing up here Wednesday, and a lot of folks had left already, but Terry, I don't know how he got the word, but he was standing right about here, and we had prayer for him at that time. Yeah, yeah.
Just think of the people sitting in that church, that going on the top, on the Children's Road, right there in front of the church.
Yeah. All right, so let's be sure to keep the Creekwood family in our prayer for sure. All right, like I said, I talked about Joshua the last time I was up here. And the big thing about Joshua was God told him, all right, he's taking over from Moses, be strong and very courageous. He said that several times to him. And it's different situations how we come into leadership or how leaders are made. So Joshua, he was subordinate to Moses, for many, many years, and learned a lot from Moses that way. He was a faithful servant, went to the land of Canaan, spied out the land, him and Caleb, and came back, and he was one of the two that did not give a bad report, like, oh, we can't do anything with those guys. They're giants, and we're just like grasshoppers. But he said, yes, we can do it. Caleb said, yes, we can do it. We go take it. Let's go. But they were faithful and knew that God would be with them. And so he became leader, and God just always told him to be strong and courageous in doing this, and as you lead the people of Israel. Now it's many years later, and they have a kingdom, the kingdom of Israel now, and that's David was the first king. I studied about him last week, and but David is about to die, and he's got to pass the kingdom over. So let's look at that real quick. That's in 1 Kings 2. And we're going to do 1 through 4. When the time drew near for David to die, he gave charge to Solomon his son. I'm about to go the way of all the earth, he said. So be strong, act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him and keep his decrees and commands, his laws and regulations, as written in the law of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. If your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all their heart, and so you will never fall and have a successor on the throne of Israel. So David says, he realizes this time on earth is short. I'm about to go the way of all men. I'm about to die. And because that's what we as humans do. He realizes that. You start realizing that more as you get older, too, it seems like to be. Like, well, used to, I remember when I was young, it's like, what's hurting me? What can hurt me? Nothing. I wasn't afraid of anyone. And that was dumb, because you could get hurt real quick. And of course, I never was a aggressive type person anyway. I had a son, our oldest son. He was a big guy, and he had an aggressive spirit to him. And I said, boy, you better behave yourself. Don't go doing things and causing trouble and thinking you're not going to get hurt, because you can't beat a gun. I mean, he was at Shaw High School when Shaw High School was starting to get pretty bad, pretty rough. And I remember him there was some little trouble in the hallway or something. She actually went to church with us at the time. She was afraid. He said, come on. So he just sort of busted through there. And I thought, man, go around. Don't do that kind of stuff. Anyway, when you get older, you realize, hey, the way of the world is you're going to die one of these days. And so he says, before I die, I need to tell you all this stuff. You think David did a good job with this? Did he do a good job of preparing Solomon?
I think he did it better than most of the kings did with their sons. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
In the beginning, Saul was faithful.
Yeah. You know, Saul was the king before him. He had a good son, Jonathan. He seemed like he was raised pretty good. Of course, I don't know.
Well, he gave him good advice. In verse 2, he says, be strong and be a man, and keep your obligations to the Lord your God, to walk in his way and keep his statutes. Being strong and being a man, like in the scenario you give, sometimes being a man doesn't mean going in and just busting up the crowd.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means having sense enough to know I don't need to get involved in that.
Yeah.
And just staying away from it altogether. And I think that was kind of what David was telling him right here. You need to be strong. You need to have good sense. You know, don't get caught up in foolish stuff. And keep the Lord.
Remain obedient.
In your life.
Yeah. Obedient to the Lord. Well, we're going to look at our scripture reading is in 1 Kings 3 and in 1 Kings 11. That's where this comes from. But I was just looking at some of the stuff in 1 Kings, and just, it's amazing. You know, this is like the kingdom. Adonijah, is that right? Adonijah, yeah, that's the son of David. He wanted to be king too. This is how it starts off in chapter 1. He wanted to be king. And there's all this strife going on. You're picking sides and all. So David had already told Solomon, I want you to be king. So he's, all right, good, that's my duty is over. I told him I want to be king. But then Adonijah tries to get in there. He gets some guys around him, one of the priests, and and Joab, the commander of the army, he got him on his side. And so it's a little intrigue going on here. And it's all part of the story. You always hear the story of how wise Solomon was, but then sometimes we miss all this stuff. Interesting stuff. And I'm not going to cover it real well, but y'all read the first couple of chapters of First Kings there, just to know the story. It looks like something that they would make a movie out of or something. But David had to. It was this guy Adonijah went ahead and got a bunch of guys and started claimed he was king, and also he was I think his mama was the same mama that had Absalom. Is that right? Anyway, so he was, of course, Absalom. David loved Absalom, and he rebelled against David, but he still loved him. But so he seemed to let Adonijah get away with a lot of stuff too. And then as he got older, he didn't pay attention so much to what he was doing. He was an old man and that kind of thing. But anyway, so y'all just read that if you will. Let's get on into Solomon here, though. We're going to skip over to chapter 3. And it says, Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace and the temple of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people, however, were still sacrificing at the high places because the temple had not yet been built for the name of the Lord. Now, these high places he's talking about here, they should have been worshiping at the tabernacle. They were worshiping the Lord, though. It was not, they were worshiping idols. Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking according to the instructions given him by his father David. except that he offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places, which was just not the place to do that. All right. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the most important high place. And Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on the altar at Gibeon. The Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream. And God said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Now, that's this guy's a new king, and what does he ask for? It's kind of incredible, isn't it? Because the realization that David has of his situation. Solomon answered, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright at heart. You have continued this kindness, this great kindness to him, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord, my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? I'm struck there by the humility of David. What do y'all think? I mean, just
Definitely shows his heart at this point. He's truly trying to do right, trying to serve the Lord as David told him to. He's definitely going in the right direction.
yeah, I think so. He's a young man.
Yeah, and that's the
He's probably 20-ish, early 20s.
The thing that gets me is, in the Ten Commandments, it says, have no other God before me. I am a jealous God. Well, in the first few verses here, it talks about how he did serve God, but he also served idols as well. It's a wonder. I don't understand why God even, came to him, or accepted Solomon.
Yeah.
It would be like, you're doing what I want you to do, but you're also doing what I don't want you to do. So I don't understand why the Lord even accepted Solomon.
Well, he married Pharaoh's
Exactly.
daughter.
Which was what God expressly told him not to do.
Yeah.
Very important.
Right.
Right.
Uh,
But yet he still came to him, and I don't understand that.
Well, of course, all people are imperfect. David was imperfect. He was a man after God's own heart, but my goodness, he did some pretty big mistakes too. Yes, sir.
On Danny's point, I look at the Old Testament characters, such as what Danny's talking about there, or the sins that David had in his life, and say, gosh, God loves us that much, he's willing to forgive us. And it helps me in my life to see that if I've messed up really bad, as long as I turn back to God, he's faithful, he's going to accept me, and he loves me that much.
I get a good bit of comfort out of seeing the characters in the Old Testament, and in the Bible, because the Bible does not whitewash the characters in it. You see their flaws. You would think that if somebody was just, this is the way you need to follow, then look at all these guys here, and it would make everybody perfect, and then here, this is what you have to do. But the scripture is full of folks that are full of sin and they still follow God. And it shows the forgiveness of God, I think.
That's human nature.
Yeah.
In the book of Psalms, it says that his love endures forever, his mercy endures forever. To me, that says he refuses to give up on us.
Yeah.
He loves us that much.
Yeah.
He's going to keep after us.
All right. It says, though, that so Solomon asked for wisdom. Well, this impressed God. He said, the Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth or for yourself, nor asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment and administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you long life. Then Solomon awoke, and he realized that he had a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for his court. So he returned to to Jerusalem, and offered sacrifices in the right place instead of going to Gibeon to offer. But all right, we'll talk about that later. Let's see. Now, the first example we have of wisdom here is the next verse there. Starts there. Now, two prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord. This woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The third day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the two of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning, I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't my son I had born." The other woman said, "No, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours." But the first one insisted, "No, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine." And so they argued before the king. The king said, "This one says, 'My son is alive and yours is dead,' while that one says, 'No, your son is dead and mine is alive.'" Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. Then he gave an order, "Cut the living child in two, give half to the one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two." Then the king gave his ruling. "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is the mother." When all Israel had heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. All right. Pretty tough situation there. Judges make similar rulings, I guess, today, but specifically this. This is pretty unique, I think. But, man, well, years ago we had foster kids. And that's a tough situation there. Denise would have to go down to the court all the time when we had one because the mother was facing the judge, and the judge would have to make decisions. And if they decided to give that baby back, especially one we had for 3 years, and the judge says, all right, it's time for you to go back to your mom, it's like, man, that was the worst thing in our life up to that time, that baby had to go back. But judges have to make decisions like that. Saul saw through this, though, didn't he? He knew what would answer the question, whose child this was. What do y'all think? Any observations from y'all? Yes, ma'am.
That to me shows a mother's love for her son. She loved him so much that she wanted him to live.
Yep. That's what mamas do. I think it's interesting that this is what really solidifies the support he has, though, with Israel, doesn't it? This really, in a big way, makes him leader, because people were not going to follow someone that necessarily that, hey, his daddy was a great man, he's made him leader now. All right, we'll follow you. You got to make a showing, hadn't you? And this is where he starts making a showing that, all right, we could follow this guy.
Having a brother that is a judge, you think sometimes they're heartless, and you know, they don't think anything of, you know, like you were talking about giving a baby back, but it bothered him.
I can only imagine.
It you know, they take it home with them.
Yeah.
And they're more human than you think. And I mean, I know, speaking personally, you know, I know how Mark feels. So that's the reason I say that.
Yeah. Well, I know that too, but you know, he's just like, I don't understand sometimes, you know, how it could be that way. But then they have rules to go by too. They have a law that they have to go by too.
They have to go by the law. And no matter if they feel like the law is, in this particular case, is wrong, they still have to rule on the side of the law. You know, no matter how cruel it is.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
And people get hurt. People are hurting because
Oh, yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And it just it shows how leaders have to deal with sin, don't they? I mean, I always heard growing up, you always hear this. I mean, since I was a child, I heard this story. And not until recently did I realize these girls were prostitutes. And so they were not living good lives here anyway. And so there's already sin happening in the world, and it's causing problems. And boy, it just shows you what sin does, doesn't it? It causes problems everywhere.
I like it that even though he was king, he was approachable.
Yeah.
And this kind of made him the people's king. You know, that they basically were taking this to the Supreme Court, and he gave them the time
Yeah.
to make this, to listen to their case and make a judgment. You know, so a lot of people wouldn't think that people that live this kind of life deserve that kind of attention from a king. And it just reminds me that we do the same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes God listens to us when others would think, why would he do that? You know, after what they've done, why would God listen to you?
Yeah. And he does listen, doesn't he? We have to ask, though. We have to talk to him. All right, so when all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. So what's that going to cause? They're going to start realizing, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. Let's go to him, right? What else are they going to do, though, too? And I think this is what happened to Solomon, because he wasn't always like this. If I stand up here in front of y'all and I do a great job with class, and hey man, you know, I want to take this on the road. I'm probably pretty good at this. Which,
Big head.
yeah, you get the big head. I like that. That's what happens. You get,
Pride took over.
yeah, pride takes over. Well, if I can do that, well, I don't have to listen to prostitutes. I can, and then what happens too is it becomes worldwide. Everybody knew how smart this guy is, and he realizes that too. But anyway, we're going to go on over to, let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Look at chapter 4, verses 29. It says, God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezraite, wiser than Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol. And his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He spoke about plant life from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the walls. He also spoke about animals and birds and reptiles and fish. From all nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. So his wisdom was famous worldwide. The king sent folks to go listen to him, to bring that wisdom back to them that they might better their life and better their country. So this is a big deal. And speaking of pride and that kind of thing, and I couldn't find this, friend. I thought of it this morning. I was like, where is that? Paul talks about it. If something is given to you by God, and everything we have is given to us by God, how is it that we got to brag about it like it's ours? And that's, that's the way we have to look at things. God gives us everything, so if he's blessed us with something or the ability to do something, we should stay humble in how we are, right? And what we can do, because it comes from God. It's not ours. We didn't build it and make it. We can help ourselves be wise by studying, that kind of thing, but not but we're given the ability to do that, though, by God.
It's almost like Yahweh's setting him up for something. You know, he keeps making him smarter, smarter, smarter. And people are paying more attention, sitting at his feet, listening to him talk. And he's talking about all these different subjects. You know, his pride is just getting bigger and bigger. And it's like there's going to come a time when, you know, he's going to say this, now you're fixing your fall right here.
Yeah. But I don't think he's set him up to do that, though.
Well, I mean, he's testing him, you know? Just see what he'll do. If, I mean, he obviously, he accepted him while he was still worshiping idols, you know, even though he was worshiping him too. So, it's I don't know, it's just like, as smart as he was getting, it's like Yahweh was letting him, just giving him more rope, you know, let him see if he would hang himself.
Yeah. Well, he did, but
And he did.
but I think that's
I mean, what would we do? We would do the exact same thing.
we're not any different than the people in the Old Testament. And I've always looked at the folks as, what are they doing? You know,
Exactly.
why are they? I mean, I just crossed the Red Sea on dry ground because of God's miracle. Why do I want to turn against him and start complaining to him now?
Right.
But then I'm just like them, so chances are most of us will do the exact same thing.
I mean, people nowadays, they go to school, these engineering schools, and they learn how to build great buildings, and they build a great building, and then they want to sit back, you know, they look what I did.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't do that. School taught you how to do that. You know, that's where you got it. The Lord gives you that knowledge, you know, in your brain to do that. You didn't do anything. You just put it all together.
Right. God made you, so.
You were a builder.
Yeah. Let's look over to chapter 11. And the chapters between where we are there with his wise thing he did with those girls and the baby. Talked about Solomon's wisdom and all that, but Solomon builds the temple, and he builds his palace. And the ark is put into the temple. And so everything is just going great. And he dedicates the temple. And verse in chapter 9, and when Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, and had achieved all he had desired to do, the Lord appeared to him a second time, as he had appeared to him in Gibeon. The Lord said, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple which you have built by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. It says, as for you, if you walk before me faithfully with integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. But if you and your descendants turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Anyway, he promises him again after he's built the temple, put the ark in there, and sacrificed at the temple there. And God appears to him the second time and says the same thing again. If you will follow me and follow my commandments, do what I want you to do, then your sons will always be on the throne. But then he, look at chapter 11. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after other gods, or their gods. Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart to after their other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. And he started following these gods. It's like, oh my goodness. Why did he start doing this? How could he have done this?
Satan entered his heart.
Sister Dash, you're facing away from me. I don't think I heard you then.
Pride comes before the fall.
Oh, pride comes before the fall.
I said Satan entered his heart.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Satan's always wanting in there, that's for sure. And that's all of us too. But
Yeah, but see, like Johnny was saying, though, pride comes before the fall. What was the one thing that God instructed the Israelites not to do? And that was marry outside of their people.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Now, in verse 2, it says, well, it names of Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonite, Hittite women from the nations. And those are the nations that God disinherited back in Genesis 11. That was a taboo. You did not do that.
Yeah.
Because if you did that, that was a sin against God right there. So that's where he made that's where the fall was, right there.
And God, who was wiser than Solomon, knew that that's what would happen. Says if y'all intermarry them and then you'll actually start following those gods. And we have to stay obedient to God is showing the importance of that. That's why we need to stay in the Word, we need to know the Word, but we need to not just know it, but we need to follow it. Because it's there for a reason. And we're going to slip up. We've talked about that. Everybody slips up, but you got to get back at it. And you can't be so distracted with how things are going so well. If I'm doing that, God has given me this wisdom to do this, or given me whatever I have to do this. And so you just keep on going. What if we get real busy? God gives us a good job, gives us the ability to do a good job, and we do it. And then, wow, I did pretty good. I made a lot of money, a lot of people happy, and this is great. But then, all of a sudden, well, I'm really busy now, and so I can't be at church this week. I got to go wherever and start a business there or do whatever there. What do you think?
The challenge is to remain humble, no matter how successful. And that's kind of the reason the Lord gave Paul the thorn in the flesh. He said, because of the exceeding abundance of the revelations, he was tended to be exalted above measure. So the Lord humbled him with this thorn in the flesh. And I think Solomon kept building upon success after success, and he built himself up so high that he didn't maybe necessarily rely on the Lord as much as he should have. He was not humble anymore in my mind.
Yeah.
Jealous of the fact that the worst sin you could do is value. to be jealous. And because, you know, Satan was jealous of God.
Yeah. Uh, I just worry about that, some of us, me included, we think too highly of ourselves sometimes, and think we can do it on our own. What do y'all think? Any other thoughts along that line? I mean,
They need to remember to always rely on the Lord for everything and not accept the praise or acclamation of men, but just recognize that God's the one that works, you know? And we're just his servants, doing whatever he has us to do.
yeah.
So whatever time we got, 100 years is not very many years when you stop to do it.
I guess if you're made king, it's hard to have a servant attitude sometimes, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially when you're the wisest, richest, strongest king in the whole world, you know.
And his attitude at first was, Lord, I'm just a child, you know. So give me wisdom that I might follow these great people.
That's
Or
why Christ is our
lead these
example.
great people.
I'm sorry, I thought you were through.
Well, I stumbled, so.
I was gonna say, that's why Christ is our example. He's king, but he came to serve and show us how. So we gotta keep our eyes on Christ.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what kind of love is that to give up heaven and come here to die on the cross for us? Man, that's what we have to keep our eyes on. And follow Christ, like you said. Anything else?
You know, jealousy is just about one of the worst sins there is just about it, is to be jealous. You know, that's how a lot of that got started, was jealousy.
Yeah, in what way?
Well, Lucifer was jealous, and he sort of got the ball rolling.
Okay. You wanted to be, he was jealous of God's power.
Oh, yeah, he wanted to be above God's throne.
Yeah. I think Solomon's problem was he just ignored God and forgot that God had given him this wisdom and therefore this great kingdom, and he forgot that God said, I'm going to take it from you if you don't follow me. Obedience is such an important thing that we have to do. How do you stay obedient to God? How did he not stay obedient to God? I guess
Well,
it's,
for us to stay obedient to God, we have got to read the Bible constantly. We've got to pray constantly. And think on Christ-like things constantly. That's the only way you're going to stay close to God.
David possessed God's own heart.
all right. That sounds pretty tough though, Daddy. I mean, constantly, that's a tough word there.
But, you know, it's like a habit, you know. Once you get into the habit, it's easier to do.
As Christians, we're supposed to live for Christ. Living is what we do. I mean, if we're alive, we're living for Christ. Praying. When do we pray? Paul says continuously, doesn't he? I mean, do we pray before we eat?
Should.
Yes, we should. Do we eat continuously?
No, pray.
No,
for
but
our
we-
food,
we-
bless God and bless our food.
We eat every day. We're consistent with our eating. And because we get hungry, say, oh man, it's time to eat. I'm thankful to you, God, that I have something to eat. I'm thankful that I had a good night's sleep. That's just, I mean, God should be right in front of our eyes all the time. Our mind's eye, I guess. Of course, He's in front of our eyes anyway, because everything that's here, He made, and we see it. He's given us the ability to see it. It's like God is always with us, and we always need to acknowledge Him as that.
When my daddy started going to church, because he got jealous of somebody coming by the house and taking the mother to church, so daddy started going.
He was worried into it, or bothered into it. Okay.
You know, I've always heard that if you do something for 7 days, every day, 7 days, at the end of 7 days, you'll continue to do it. Now, that could be either good or bad, but it's, 7 days, the habit will be over with, you'll just continue to do it. That's what we've got to do. We just got to stay in our Bible, stay on our knees, and stay close to God.
Yeah. All right, but when we fall, we got to realize God's going to accept us back. We just got to repent and ask forgiveness, and then He'll accept us back. Now get on the road again. Get on that path, straight and narrow, and keep on going. Anything else? All right. I enjoyed it. Appreciate y'all.